I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, June the 6th, and El Reno surprises everybody. Yeah, it was some blower, but it wasn't the wreck that everybody thought this entire week would be. Wasn't nearly as much lower as the sales earlier in the week, and pretty good trade there and decent demand. Of course, the board was up again, or the feeder cattle board was up again, gaining back on some of that big loss that we saw last Friday, but pretty darn good sale there at El Reno, and several good Wednesday auctions that we saw around. Coming to you from Visalia, California, here at the LMA Convention, Livestock Marketing Association. In conjunction with that, they're having the World Livestock Auctioneer Championship, and I think some people might have got confused thinking that I was competing in this auctioneer contest. No, I do some auctioneering. I've been an auctioneer for 19 years. I sold, my dad and I had a weekly cattle auction when I was young, and I sold it every week, but I haven't kept up with that, and I'm not in the same class with these guys at all, and I don't want to get anybody confused there. Kind of in comparison there, I've roped a handful of calves and steers in my life, but I will not be at the national finals this year. So I'm just telling you that these guys are the tippy top best, 31 best in the entire world at what they do. And I know you guys hear a lot about different auctioneers if you're not in the cattle auction business, but I mean, you can sell junk, you can sell pies, cakes, art, household items, farm sales, stuff like that, even cars. But if you can do all that stuff, it still doesn't mean you can sell cattle. But if you can sell cattle, all that other stuff is a breeze. So this is the tippy top of the auctioneers, the world champion livestock auctioneers, and I'm just excited to come here and watch them. I have several good friends that are in the contest, and I'm going to root all them on. I've called it pretty close the last couple of years, and I will say that I believe that Russell Sleep from Bedford, Iowa, either him or Jay Romine from Mount Washington, Kentucky, that's the main auctioneer at Bluegrass Stockyards, I believe one of those two will win because they've been so close to it before. But I'm also rooting for my friend Ryan Kaninen-Belt, the young man from Alberta, Canada, and I was kind of involved with him being here as I was got to be one of the auctioneers last summer at the International Livestock Auctioneer Championship at Calgary, and he was tops on my card, and some of the other judges too, evidently, because he won it there, and that's what gave him the ticket to come here and compete against the other guys that went to regional competitions. But it's a very exciting contest. Any one of the 31 that are here would be deserving of winning it, and that's how tight it is. But it'll likely come down to the interview portion of the contest. But let's talk about your markets on Wednesday. The board, June live cattle futures up 30 cents at 107.85. August up 62. All of a sudden the board's finding friends in the cattle pits. 104.67 for August on the close. Feeder cattle for August up $2 even at 139.45, and September up $1.82 at 139.70. Maybe a lot of the favoritism that we see on your cattle is due to corn not really responding, and just as soon as I say something and it becomes a false, I said that normally your grains respond immediately to fundamentals. That crop progress report we had earlier in the week was very bullish for grains, especially corn, and they did not really respond to that. Middle of the week here, they're blaming the lack of that response to global growth of those same products. You know, they don't just grow corn and beans here in the United States, they grow them all over the world. Not everywhere is having the same problems that we're having. They're going to have bumper crops some places, but on Wednesday, corn was down 10.5 cents and beans down 12. So that's got to keep you row crop farmers shaking or scratching your heads, and those guys that are diversified in cattle and row crops, they just pretty much threw all their papers out the window and don't know what to think. But look at your fat cattle trade, and I guess we're just going to trade cattle every day this week, but through Tuesday, remember we had a pretty big Monday, which is unheard of, but through Tuesday, 31,400 head. That's about a third of what we need to be selling, but usually it doesn't happen until late in the week. I'll show you how rare that is, that we have over 30,000 head through Tuesday on a week this time of year. A week ago at this time it was 500 head sold in the entire 5-area feeding region, and a year ago it was 350 head. So we've got an unusual week here of trading with guys course basis jumping and a lot of different scenarios going on in there, but it's unusual in this time of year, late spring, early summer, where your packers are really needing cattle. They're wanting to step up kills and fill their shelves as full as they can get them, and guys just dashing to sell them their cattle. But actually the market hasn't been that bad. We've seen a little bit more trade on Wednesday. Iowa about 2,400 head, had a few from live from 115.5 to 116. Wouldn't be too awful bad. Dress sales 186 to 188. That'd be about steady with last week. Nebraska had about 1,500 head at 114 live and 183 dressed. Kansas 2,200 head was confirmed on Wednesday from 111 to 113. I'm thinking that 111 is probably for late June, and that 113 would be for immediate delivery. But they're saying that they're calling for those cattle quicker than what they had agreed upon, which is not really fair to these feeders, because a lot of them are taking lower prices for further out because we know we're under pressure and they think the market's going down. If they start calling for those cattle just a few days out, that's not quite fair, and there needs to be some adjustment there. But dress sales in Kansas, a few, we don't usually see a lot of those, but 183 also. But very light trade. 113 mostly in the Southern Plains live, 114 in the Northern Plains, but you add a $5 basis to that and there's worse things in the world. Box beef cutout value is a little bit easier middle of the week, but still hanging in there. Your slaughter at 360,000 head through Wednesday. That's 2,000 more than the same week a year ago, so keeping up pretty well. I want to talk about some feeder cattle. Don't forget, they've got a big special at Ogallala, Nebraska on Thursday. Around 5,500 head. That's their big anniversary barbecue special, and they're going to have a big sale at Ogallala. And don't forget about primetime livestock video out of Joplin Regional Stockyards. They've got several good cattle. Got some cattle from an Angus marketing program in there too. They'll have some good cattle on there. Watch that at primetime livestock video or at dvauction.com. You can view and bid at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon Central. Don't forget about that. Let's talk about your feeder markets for Wednesday. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central set at 130.25 late on Wednesday. That was down just 41 cents with a lot of volume on Wednesday. So that's kind of encouraging, because remember, that's a 7-day moving average, and we've got prices dropping off the other end of that are likely higher. So being able to keep that less than 50 cents difference, that's pretty good. And you can watch every day that CME index is just chasing the real-time index whatever which way it goes, because it's figured the same way. It's just that your real-time index is just that, it's real time. You can look at it anytime you want, and it's about a day and a half ahead of what CME puts out. But look at your sales. Like I talked, OKC West and El Reno ended up with over 8,100 head for the 2-day sale, 1,500 or so calves on Tuesday there. Now they were lower. Market News called them feeder steers $1 to $4 lower, feeder heifers $2 to $5 lower. Some of the guys that were at the sale didn't think it seemed that bad, but they might have been thinking about the markets that they saw on Monday, like in the city where it was almost twice that bad. But really kind of an encouraging trend there. That's not that bad for what we've seen, for what we saw on the board on feeder cattle at the end of last week, what's going on in your grains, the floods and everything, not being able to get this crop in. So I would say that's a victory for El Reno. And if you'd asked anybody Monday night or Tuesday morning if they'd have sold cattle as well as they did in El Reno on Wednesday, they would have said you was full of it. But pretty darn good sale at OKC West. I'm going to give you some quotes out of there off Cattle Market Central. This is just for the Wednesday yearling feeder cattle auction, so don't pay any mind they don't have too many calves, of course, on a Wednesday. But you look at some of these quotes. This is on all the feeder cattle, not pick and choosing, but on the steers. 704 head of 7-weight steers average 755, 130, 195. 1,553 head of 8-weight steers averaged 854 at 125.34, and 1,277 head of 9-weight steers averaged 947 at 117.11. But I'm going to give you a 9-weight quote here in a minute that'll blow your head off. Okay, now the biggest slug of heifers was in the 8-weight deal. 1,131 of those 8-weight heifers averaged 838 at 114.37. And the individual quote that I picked out of El Reno was in that 9-weight steer category. Short load of them, but 45 head of 947-pound steers at El Reno brings 125.50. That's pretty good. That would be better than last week, but as a whole the market wasn't quite as good. But it's just good to see the buyers firing back at them again. They've got some empty pens. This would be the last big slug of graze out wheat coming off. Those cattle need to be off already, and also some backgrounded cattle in there too. But it's probably going to get kind of light around for a while now until we start seeing those big video sales in early July. And then that will kind of set the market for fall on those fall delivery yearlings, and somewhat for the calves too. Dodge City, Kansas, 2,400 head on Wednesday. Feeder steers there actually steadied to $2 higher because they had a real light test a week ago. They just continue to have weather in that southern Kansas area, and they're expecting more of it later this week. The feeder heifers at Dodge City at Winter Livestock, $2 to $5 lower. Look at this individual quote on steers out of Dodge City. 65 head of 1,041-pound steers in Dodge bring $117 on a market where the fats are 113. It's hot and you're not sure what the grain's going to cost to feed them, and that's a pretty good quote. 117 on 1040 weight steers. I'm going to give you a couple of other individual quotes. One from one of my favorite livestock marketing families in all of the United States, the Patton family, South Central Regional Stockyards in Vienna, Missouri. Good people, in spite of the patriarch David Patton, which I'm not always sure is altogether there. But he's getting some age on him, so we're going to give him a free rein on that. But look at what they did in Vienna. Vienna will get green stocker type short yearling type cattle there that's got a lot of go to them when nobody else has them. Stockpiled fescue allows you to do that, and those cattle have been out there all winter, but they have some of the best cattle. Those late spring, early summer stockers. 108 head of 626-pound steers bring 164 in Vienna, Missouri at South Central Regional. Now I'm going to give you another big quote out of Creighton, Nebraska, and those of you that watch this every day say, wait a minute, you gave us a big quote out of Creighton on Tuesday. Well, they had their 2-day big special, and they had another big quote on Wednesday, and this is the biggest, best quote I've seen for a while. 322 head of 977-pound steers bring 131 at Creighton, Nebraska. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.